Citizens arrest time, baby. Citizens arrest time, baby. Woo! Let's get it started.
We interrupt our programming on Al Jazeera to bring you some breaking news. And the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant.
Warrants was issued by the prosecutor 6 months ago on May the 20th. There have been some really serious delays for issuing these arrest warrants. There was a lot of questions about if the ICC was capable of doing so, despite a lot of rejections by the parties that are involved in the ICC, especially also from Europe, from Germany, but also Israel has very much tried to avoid this by filing all kinds of complaints. But the ICC has now decided to reject these complaints, and they have said that these arrest warrants should now be issued.
And indeed, there had been also a great deal of pressure step on the ICC not to issue these warrants, particularly on the Israeli government, the Israeli leadership. Why has the court chosen to do so now?
Well, the question, the case is that now there is a new presiding judge of the pre-trial chamber that was issuing these arrest warrants. The previous presiding judge has informed the court that she was sick, that there was a medical issue. So she recently stepped down after months of basically investigating the case, and suddenly she disappeared from the case. And then a new presiding judge, a French judge, is now holding this case. And very quickly after the previous judge stepped down, this decision has now been taken. So this also gives us some answers on these delays, where basically also...
Really dumb American, but why the f isn't the U.S. a part of the ICC? What do you mean, dog? International organs of justice and the United Nations are simple tools of American hegemonic power, or at least historically, they have been used as tools for the West to enact whatever its agenda is. Unequal extraction of natural resources from the global South, permanent war against America's enemies or against enemies of the West. But today is a different day. As America's power on the global stage wanes, many Americans are terrified of the prospect of a Chinese future. But in the interim period, given Israel's unconscionable actions, given the Israeli government's inhumanity and consistent violence, unending violence, regardless of America's protection, America's attack dog gets at least one mark on its track record, on its otherwise stainless history. These institutions do not work against America or its allies. This is the first ever instance in my lifetime where I have seen this. This is fantastic. America can try to consistently defend Israel throughout this process, as they have and they will. But this directly puts them at odds with many reasonable, moral people in Europe, not just in your lifetime. It's the first time since World War II it's been used against a Western nation. And I mean, that's when it was created. Feeling this tweet right now? Yeah. Firm believer in international rule-based order right now until Biden nukes The Hague. Regarding Fox News characterizing you as an American hater, it's funny because you express strong critiques for all manners of nations, including China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. It turns out you just have an unshakable moral compass and there's no home for us anywhere. I know. And it's not that there's no home for us anywhere. It's that I want to fix the home that I'm in. Western nation in the center of the Middle East. Brother, if you think Israel is not simply an extension of the United States of America and its imperial ambitions in the region, I don't know what to tell you. You might have been in a column over the past year. Hello? Israel is America. Just letting you know. Israel is not just any Western nation. It is America. It is an extension of the United States of America. America says jump, Israel says how high, which is precisely the reason why all this Biden is so powerless in the face of Benjamin Netanyahu. Conversations were so goddamn frustrating for me because, yes, that's what it looked like. And Bibi was dog walking him for sure and taking advantage of his senility and his also rabid Zionism. Having said that, however, ultimately, This was still a part of America's imperial ambition, and I think they overstepped. This is why I said Palestine and Israel's genocide over Palestinians has laid bare for all to see the Western world's depravity. Straight up, things are changing. The entire world is witnessing a in my opinion, very consequential change in the way things have worked so far. Is the arrest warrant released after the SA case at the ICJ? No. The International Court of Justice prosecutes nations. The International Criminal Court prosecutes people. So the ICC prosecution is for individuals that happen to be in charge of nations doing a genocide. And for the record, a lot of people say, Hassan, you say America bad, but why do you always say America bad, but you never follow it up? Well, those people go, la, 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 I can't hear you when I follow it up. You must understand something very important right now. It is not an accident that every single senator and every single congressperson in the United States of America, with the exception of like a handful, are currently tweeting like they're Sephiroth. They're all out there tweeting like anime villains. They're baying for blood. They're seeing red. They're like, we have to nuke The Hague. Down to the likes of Thomas Cotton. The ICC is a kangaroo court and Kareem Khan is a deranged fanatic. Woe to him and anyone who tries to enforce these outlaw warrants. Let me give them all a friendly reminder. The American law on the ICC is known as the Hague Invasion Act for a reason. Think about it. They're cackling all right. God damn. Tom Cotton has literally talked about using the military on Black Lives Matter protesters, wrote about it on the New York Times. Tom Cotton has also talked about killing pro-Palestinian protesters and climate change protesters. Tom Cotton does not give a f. He is a straightforward Nazi. Tom Cotton, very famously, if you guys recall, was the guy who pulled up the Singaporean CEO of TikTok to be like, what kind of Chinese are you, boy? How Chinese are you, boy? You know, that sort of thing. Now, I will not be posting the Shinzo Abe tweet that I very famously once posted about Tom Cotton because I don't want to get in trouble. Only Americans believe they are the good guys, even in Europe, across all political spectrum. I've seen people shit on the USA. Yes, and it is well-deserved. For all the America good, actually, understanders, this is going to be a very hard day of cope. They will turn around and say, oh, America's still good. The ICC, maybe they are anti-Semitic. Maybe they're Hamas. Maybe they got Hamas tunnels under there. Whoo! The U.S. rejected the warrant. We knew that they were going to reject the warrant. They have been actively pressuring the ICC's warrant application to not go through until this very moment. So that is not surprising to me, nor is it shocking to me. America can say whatever the f wants. They will cope and they will seethe. Do they also disagree with the decision to issue warrants against Hamas leaders? No, that part also is like so inconsequential in the grand scheme of things because that part is expected. The unexpected part is that someone that is firmly within the American sphere of influence, but not necessarily just in the American sphere of influence, but also protected by the American government so thoroughly, could ever be declared a war criminal. This is unique. This is new. This is a welcomed correction. Also, most of the Palestinian leadership that they declared war criminals for October 7 have been assassinated by Israel regardless. So this is exactly what I thought as well. State Department press briefing canceled for today. Oh, no. Please do not laugh at this. State Departments only do this when they are in great distress. Citizens arrest time, baby. Citizens arrest time, baby. Woo!
Buying time because now with the new judge, apparently there was no more hesitation and he took this decision together with two other judges.
Remind our viewers, Sepp, of what the Israeli government and his former defense minister, as well as the Hamas leader, who's also been issued an arrest warrant with, what exactly are they being accused of?
Yeah, these are the crimes against humanity and war crimes. And what the prosecutor really laid out last May was that starving the population of Gaza was a very important point for him to ask for these arrest warrants, but also
something I noticed in my EU country subreddit suddenly seemed to be much more pro-Palestine after this warrant. Typical shit. Just a week ago, it was people who are pro-Israel. Yeah, a lot of liberals do care about these institutions. Okay, they have not had the same cynical framework that I have been operating with, because I wasn't just cynical. I was just realistic about the way things work. Right? Of course, they do care about that sort of thing, so it'll be much, much, much harder for them, I think, to defend this shit.
The fact that there have been murders, attacks, of course, from the Israeli army. But one of the things that really stood out was the fact that the Israeli authorities and the Israeli army have been starving the population of Gaza, and that's something that's a very specific war crime that also has already some experience at the ICC in previous cases. So I think the prosecutor hopes that there will be a lot of evidence that he can use for to prove this case.
Okay. Steph, we know that Israel doesn't accept the jurisdiction of the ICC, doesn't recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC. So what will this mean for this case against the Israeli leadership, Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Gallant?
This will mean that every country that is part of the ICC, and from the top of my head, these are now 40 countries, they have the obligation to arrest Netanyahu, Gallant, and Dave when they come across these individuals. So this will mean in practice that it's going to be very difficult for Netanyahu to travel and Gallant as well to travel abroad, because the countries that are members of the ICC, for example, Germany, the UK, a lot of European countries as well, but also countries across the globe, have the obligation to arrest them and hand them over to The Hague, to the court.
First, has there been any reaction to this so far in Israel?
I'm losing my mind, dude. I'm losing my mind. I'm shocked. I'm actually straight up surprised in the most pleasant way possible. I saw that article like last week or 2 weeks ago when Mossad was trying to do a last ditch effort, and they were like, "Hey, why don't we just like say Karim Khan is actually doing rapes all the time?" The prosecutor that, ironically enough, and this is the ICC prosecutor that was replaced. Originally, it was a lady by the name of Bensouda, who was literally straight up intimidated by Mossad. This is all straight up real shit that Israel did for even daring to investigate Israel's war crimes. So this has been an ongoing incident for a long time. The ICC, the International Criminal Court, was investigating Israel for apartheid and for war crimes for quite a while. The person who was prosecuting them potentially was harassed, intimidated, surveilled, and Benjamin Netanyahu got Donald Trump to place sanctions on her individually. It was insane. So then America and Israel were like, let's put a different guy on there. Let's put our guy on there, a guy that we like. His name, Karim Khan. Okay, these clips out of context are going to go wild on Fox News. Oh, yeah? They're going to be like, Hassan supports terrorism because he's celebrating the International Criminal Court actually doing real prosecutions for once? Really? It does not matter. The truth does not change. This is what I tried to explain to people yesterday when we were reading the Fox News cancel piece, the hit piece. Look at that. Look at the retaliation. Award-winning investigative journalist fighting for the truth. ICC judges, we know that in reality we don't have jurisdiction, but let's try and arrest the Jews anyway. The ICC's a anti-Semitic kangaroo court. No, they want to arrest us for doing a bit of war crimes. Israeli Prime Minister also called it a anti-Semitic. The anti-Semitic decision of the International Criminal Court is a modern Dreyfus trial and will end the same way. Israel utterly rejects the false and absurd charges of the International Criminal Court, a biased and discriminatory political body. No war is more just than the war Israel has been waging in Gaza since October 7th, 2023, when Hamas terrorist organization launched a murderous assault and perpetrated the largest massacre against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. The decision to issue an arrest warrant against the prime minister was made by a corrupt chief prosecutor who was trying to save himself from sexual harassment. See, this is what I mean. Bro, immediately, they were like, what can we do here? What can we do about Karim Khan? Oh, he's a sexual assaulter, actually. And it was funny because, like, even Western media that normally would, jump to cover these sorts of things because they love this sort of shit, were like, yeah, while we want to take the allegations seriously, the timing of them were quite interesting, and it could be potentially a made up by Israel. Come on, dude. Come on. He said, calling us war criminals for doing a genocide is anti-Semitic. Also, you're a sexual harasser. The ICC prosecutor lied when he told American senators that he would take no action until he had visited Israel and heard its side. Instead, he canceled his arrival in Israel last May, several days after suspicions of sexual harassment were made against him, and announced his intention to issue arrest warrants against Prime Minister and former defense minister. No anti-Israel decision will prevent the state of Israel from defending its citizens. Notice how he's mentioning sexual harassment twice now. I think the sexual assault allegations are actually credible, but it's obviously irrelevant as to whether Netanyahu is guilty. Look, man, all I'm going to say is this, okay? It has no bearing on Karim Khan's prosecution of Israel. Okay? It's also rather odd coming from the state that literally was like, oh shit, we might actually get in trouble. Let's use complementarity to our advantage and prosecute some of the people that were doing mass rapes in the prisons. And then they couldn't even do that because they had an armed January 6th style rebellion where they forcibly freed the rapist and made him a television star. The Israeli Knesset members turned around and were like talking about how, you don't understand, actually. The IDF does have a right to rape Palestinians. Get out of here. They had a rape January 6th, man. The former prosecutor, they literally personally harassed the former prosecutor before Karim Khan. You understand that, right? Like, they surveilled the former prosecutor before Karim Khan. They got America to place sanctions on the former prosecutor before Karim Khan. It's not just Karim Khan either. Yeah, they were stalking her. I covered it extensively. Israeli spy chief threatened ICC prosecutor over war crimes inquiry. They tapped her phones to see exactly what she was actually going to create a case around, so they could go back and like do some sort of prosecution to be like, yeah, what are you talking about? You can't interfere in our affairs. We're a democratic organization. We have democratic governance. We actually investigate our own war crimes, specifically the ones that, we figured out by surveilling and tapping the phones of the former ICC prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, to see exactly which war crimes she was actually focusing on so that we could actually use complementarity to our advantage as a deflection, as a shield. The well is endless for depravity. And there's a lot to talk about, but here, let's see what the ICC warrants mean.
There hasn't been any reaction officially from Netanyahu's office. I have texted officials close to the Israeli Prime Minister, but there's been no reaction yet. But we know, or we can predict, how they will react, given that when the chief prosecutor for the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, who's a British lawyer, first sought these arrest warrants, it was met with a lot of anger and, frankly, disbelief by senior members of the Israeli government and a lot of people in Israel as well. They were disgusted at the idea that the ICC could be investigating Israeli leaders for war crimes when it was Hamas that carried out the October the 7th attacks. But the initial request by the chief prosecutor of the ICC included, as well as Netanyahu and the former now defense minister Yoav Gallant, it included the two Hamas leaders, Yahya Sinwar and Ismail Haniyeh. Well, they're now both dead, killed by Israel, so they're no longer on the charge sheet, as it were. And Mohammed Daif, another senior member, commander of Hamas, an arrest warrant has been issued for him as well. Israel says that they had killed him, but Hamas have not confirmed it officially. So effectively 3 arrest warrants have been issued by the International Criminal Court, but the 2 most significant, for obvious reasons, are those against Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. The court, in their statement that they released, said that they have reasonable grounds to believe that those 2 men have been carrying out the war crime of starvation as a method of warfare and the crimes against humanity of murder, persecution, and other inhumane acts. Now, it's been quite a lengthy process to get to this point ever since the arrest warrants were first sought about 6 or 7 months ago. There have been a lot of legal challenges, in particular by the Israelis, against firstly the authority of the court to do this. The Israelis argue that the court doesn't have an authority to pursue claims related to Israel because they're not a signatory, or the Palestinian. But the court rejected that and said they do have jurisdiction over Palestinian territory. There's also been question marks over one of the judges on the panel and their suitability to take one of these decisions, and whether or not they were suitably independent. But the court has rejected all that and has now issued these arrest warrants. So what does it mean? Well, practically, it would mean that Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant couldn't travel to any state that is a signatory of the International Criminal Court. That's around 120 countries around the world, including many European countries, including the United Kingdom. And by rights, at least according to what those countries have signed up to, were Netanyahu to travel to any of those countries, he should be arrested by the police forces of those countries. And it'll be very interesting to see actually what Keir Starmer and the Labour Party government's reaction is to this.
If he actually tried to travel to those places, what are the odds he would actually be arrested? I would love to see it. No, I don't think it's 0. I think he's just not going to go to those places. I don't think it's 0. Like, people will point to Vladimir Putin, who also is a war criminal and has a warrant out for his arrest, traveling to Mongolia. I don't think that's the same. I don't think that Vladimir Putin going to Mongolia, which is supposed to abide by the Rome Statute and not arresting Vladimir Putin, is the same as Benjamin Netanyahu going to the heart of Europe. Yeah. It's serious, man. It's not like that. It's not. I mean, we talk about how feckless of an institution the UN is, right? And in many respects, it's true because the Security Council trumps all, and the Security Council is dominated by a singular veto power in the hands of the United States of America. Okay? Having said that, however, this is an escalation. This is one step above that. The ICC is a pretty, I mean, it's a pretty solid, well-respected institution. While its influence can be limited in a place like Mongolia, which is very limited in what it can and can't do. And the ICC itself doesn't have they're not going to use like Interpol or whatever, but they do have a network of laws in place for exactly this situation happening. Now, the interesting part about this is that it is in American law to invade The Hague if Israel or any Israeli or any American ally ever gets prosecuted in the ICC. This is real. This is a very real law in the American books. Okay? Something that I've talked about quite a bit. Not a rule that you would have if you're a good guy. Historically, good guys don't have. We will blow up the International Criminal Court in their books as a rule. The Hague Invasion Act is an act that allows the president to order U.S. military action such as the invasion of the Netherlands, where The Hague is located, to protect American officials and military personnel from prosecution and rescue them from custody. Yeah, but that in and of itself would make America the enemy of the entire Western world. I don't think they have motion like that. Remember, something that I've told you about soft power over and over again. Soft power and hard power work hand in hand. Soft power and hard power work together. All of a sudden, 800 military bases can look like 800 different invasions. 800 military bases will look like a collaborative security partnership as long as America is seemingly abiding by the rules or not going so far, not just getting too far out of pocket. Yeah, you can invade Libya, for example. You can bomb Libya with some NATO troops. You can go into Iraq. You can go into Afghanistan. But if you go into the Netherlands, well, that's an entirely different situation. You can have that law in your books as a threat. Following through on that threat is entirely different. Now, do I think Donald Trump would do such a thing? Maybe. Who knows? He's a psycho. Perhaps a reasonable person who is maybe not demented, who cares about the future of this country and every other country, and maybe even maintaining a shred of decency for the United States of America, what remains, would try to pack this entire situation up before it gets completely out of hand. And then Donald Trump is the one with the reins of power. But they're not going to do that because Joe Biden is a ultra nationalist for Israel.